Hello, hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Just give me a sec to, I
Pickety
guess,
click?
get on actual video here.
Sure.
Um,
There we go.
Hi.
Hey, oh, I'm having a coffee. Are you eating right now? Did I interrupt your lunch?
I'm chewing one last bite of a small snack, and then I've got,
Well, okay, then here, I'm toasting you right now. And
mm,
I would love you to, in a little while after you've digested, to sing us a song so people hear about your voice. But first, without wanting to embarrass you, I want to read a couple of quotes so people that are tuning in will know about you. I love that Eddie Kramer says, "You are a true artist and songwriting genius." Like, I think everybody knows, but in case you don't, Eddie Kramer, he's the guy who did the Kiss Alive album, Rock and Roll All Night, Party Every Day. That amazing guy. Recently, he worked with Buddy Guy, speaking of guys, one of my favorite all-time entertainers. So this is no stinting praise. The other person that had a really cool thing to say is one of my favorite journalists in Canada, a rock god himself, Lenny Stout, an amazing writer. He writes, "My favorite next-gen quirkoid singer-songwriter," and he compared you to Ed Sheeran and Ron Sexsmith. So that must make you feel good.
yeah.
Okay, I hope you got to swallow your food. We're going to talk about other things in your career, but I want to start with your record because you have this record that has taken how many years to finish?
Well,
2?
really, it largely happened in one, and then there were just, delays and surprises and little things, dumb mistakes that I made that I had to undo, and just stuff like that. And so,
Oh,
yeah, it's been
it was
about.
about a year. And Eddie Kramer was in town working with you, right, in your own studio.
Yeah, he was right in here. This is my studio here, Silverthorne Studios. But it's in the middle of some repairs right now. But
Okay, so Silverthorne is west end of Toronto?
yes, it's around the stockyards.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, so I mean a bunch, basically the overdubbing and a lot of the mixing happened here. There was also like bed tracking at Revolution Recording. There were also a couple days in Nashville for bed tracking, actually before Eddie was involved, and that was with a guy named Fred Mullen, who is has dual citizenship, also beloved in Canada, and so that was very, very special as well to get to lay down with
so many songs though, right? I have no idea. I've heard most of them. I think you played me 50, 60. I don't even remember how many, but a ton of songs. How did you decide, or did you play everything for your producers to kind of walk in and say, "Hey, let's do this"?
Well, that's a good question. So, I mean, when you first heard those, by the way, James, that would have been like a few years ago. So there's been plenty since then, and a lot of ideas. But yeah, basically what I did was I tried to narrow it down. It was me narrowing it down to a 50 or a 60 for Eddie to hear. And I had a couple different playlists. So initially, I'm inherently an oddball. So for me, I imagined, okay, well, I should make some kind of concept album or something that, but deep down that was covering up that I just felt like I didn't really have anything real to give as an artist. Like I could only write something conceptual, or I could write a musical fine, but ask me to really write something that is genuine and vulnerable without having all this other stuff in the way, then good luck with that. So what I did was I had one playlist which was me imagining making this 70s concept album where I'd play a pseudonym, and it would be a fake greatest hits album, and I could have all this neat stuff in the liner notes about why this song was banned, because it was criticizing Elvis and before Elvis died. And
right. But you know what's cool about this thing? You're making me chuckle here because Chris Gaines, Garth Brooks was already famous when he went that route. You almost started your career off as a character, not as yourself. If that would have flown, we wouldn't have heard probably some of those songs, right? It's still a great concept album.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a cohesive album, But what ended up happening was I sent 2 playlists, one with the stuff that I was sure he would love, and then one with the stuff where I was like, this is more like, singer-songwriter folk, and I like hid the really vulnerable ones at the very bottom of this 30-track demo playlist.
Yeah.
And then, so I'd rehearsed all this stuff with my band, and so he came to a rehearsal, and he just started playing a few in particular over the speakers, and it was the ones that I was really scared about. So like, this one about gender identity,
Yeah.
and just the heavier stuff. And he played that in front of the band, kind of like held an intervention for me, like, you need to do this.
Right.
You need to do this stuff. So we went that route instead, and I'm really glad we did.
Well, I agree with him too, because the thing about right now, you are in the right place at the right time. Quirky people are accepted. Questions of gender are accepted. It's the perfect time for you to do these songs. I'm forgetting the name of the song you did at Lula Lounge during the Jazz FM One-Stop Vocal Jazz Safari. It's a vocal showcase, 24 singers, and you sang one song. Do you remember?
I don't know. I've done a few of them.
It's the one you've done the most often for me.
Oh, well, I mean, do you mean just...
Never in My Wildest Dreams.
Good old Never in My Wildest. So yeah, I can do a pinch of that.
I'd love people to hear this, because when you did this song, you had a backup band who had never heard the song, and you took that song to places. I mean, the audience went nuts for you. Yeah. And it shows that there's kind of almost, and I don't want to say Norah Jones, but I love that example. Someone who can appeal to a pop audience, or maybe a jazz audience, or a folk audience, or it's just good songwriting.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, that's something I'm really passionate about as a songwriter, is making stuff that that's not only appeals to a lot of people, but is kind of pushing songwriting forward. I know that sounds very pretentious to say, because I also know a lot of artists who have pushed it a lot further than me. Yeah. But it's almost like with each new generation, you got to remind people, hey, did you know that you can have this kind of chord in a song again?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll do a bit of Never in My Wildest to give people a little bit of context. So I mean, Jaymz B has been an amazing support of my music. He first heard me at one of Mary Margaret O'Hara's Martian Awareness balls, and
you were singing Little Green Bag,
right? And
you were jumping around like K.D. Lang circa 1982. You were jumping around like an orangutan singing that song. It was a lot of fun. I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then a few years later, it was another awareness ball at the Horseshoe, and Catherine, her sister Catherine O'Hara was in the audience too, watching from the wings. And I was like, oh geez, I'm gonna really try and like push this to the limit then. And I think Mary and I ended up like falling on the ground and like crawling, and it got very bizarre.
Yeah.
But so here's a bit of Never in My Wildest. So this is a song that, I'm saving until I procure some funds to do a proper pseudo jazz record, I would say, with this man here.
I love the idea of you doing a collection of songs almost live off the floor, maybe a few bells and whistles, but these songs stand on their own. Yeah, let's hear a little taste.
I'm looking forward to doing a record in a way that's much more simple and raw. I really tried to make pet sounds out of the gate, which in a lot of ways isn't smart, but here we go. So you want the whole opening bridge and everything too?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Life for me has been a cruel affair, blue and sentimental, for love that never happened and never will. And never will. Hold me close and tell me that it's not so bad. I think it goes here. I love feeling magic when I open my heart to your eyes. But please move gently. You said our love was burning so low. I thought I'd be walking you home without a kiss. That all the love I feel would once again be a joke for the masses. But crash bang, as all my pain came undone, so near. Under stars we were one, like a flame, dancing round the rain. Never in my wildest, never in my wildest, never in my wildest dreams. Oh, could my lonely heart imagine love would ever happen to a broken young man like me? As time rolls on, my heart forgets the ways it was chained and blindfolded. Yes, it seems all my rejection was the way to your door. Perfection to me is you. Your eyes reveal the goddess inside your mind. The prayers we mumble inside from our lips have a laugh, make a wish, share a kiss, and never in my wildest, never in my wildest, never in my wildest dream. Could my lonely heart imagine love would ever happen to a broken young man like me? That is most of the song for you, Jaymz.
Hey, you know what's funny? You have I guess a condenser mic that is kind of cutting out.
Oh,
so
no.
So you could hear some guitar, but not a lot. But
Okay.
I think anyone who hears that chorus, the minute they hear it, it's a lot of your work is self-effacing, and it's really beautiful because it's vulnerable. What you said, what makes you nervous to sing it is why it's so good. And everybody had that moment. Some people have it daily. Some people had it when they were young. But that whole thing about I don't even deserve that person or this much happiness. There's something really bittersweet about most of your songs. Is it something that you set down to write, or does it almost write itself?
I think that sometimes I'm trying to find a concept when I write. I don't just want to say, hey, let's write a love song. You know, I try to at least have a little bit of an angle for it. It's
Yeah.
like if you were to sit down and pitch a TV show to someone, you wouldn't just say, well, and then the guy gets the girl in the end. You know, I just try to have a little bit of yin and yang in it, because it just inherently makes it more interesting. And also I'm a sea of contradictions. You know, I think that life itself is kind of a sea of contradictions. So I think that can help in a lot of ways. But also sometimes I do sit down and try and just write a simple love song. You know, there is, I think, one or two of them on the album, but I also wanted to have a twist with it. Like, you know, there's one called Heaven in Your Eyes, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and write the Canadian version of Wouldn't It Be Nice? You know?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So, you know, it's like more about like this kind of romantic cottage country experience, and is trying to be as complicated as that, because I wanted to see if I could get close to that in production. You know, like if I, you know, threw on a tuba and I threw on all these unnecessary instruments just to have that experience for myself. You know, so that was like a different way of still trying to do something different yet not, you know. So
well, when you started, you already knew you had to do showbiz. I think you were 5 years old when you started dressing like Elvis.
yeah, well, I was an Elvis impersonator when I was 5 as a little kid, and that was basically my own volition. And even begging my parents for an acting agent when I was 6, that was all me.
Wow.
And we lived out in, you know, like hours away from Toronto, so bless them for driving me.
Where would you perform? Did you ever do Collingwood or any of these Elvis fests around Ontario?
Oh, that would have been great. I actually with my buddy Bryn one time. I was in Collingwood while the Elvis thing was happening because they had some other talent contest at the same time, and it was so weird because
Yeah.
it's just this ghostly echo of just Elvises from every corner. And you're like,
Exactly.
am I in hell? Am I in heaven? What is this?
Yeah, it's
And
definitely strange. So you started
but
getting into music.
I would play like county fairs and things like that, like from a very young age. And one time it was just all these girls singing "My Heart Will Go On" because that was the song of the time.
Yeah.
And just like 16 girls doing that. And then I got up and I wasn't Elvis, but I sang Rockin' Robin. And I was like, 7 years old or something like that. And then we just left, thought nothing of it. And then they called us later and we're like, what are you doing? He got first or second place. And I was like, oh, okay. And that implanted in my mind at an early age that there's a space for trying to be different, even though there will be a lot of people who discourage you not to.
Right. Well, that's a good point. I was going to ask about your early, the difficult teenage years. You want to be a musician, but I assume, like me and anybody else who's a little different, there must have been a little bullying going on at the same time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For me, it was also amplified because I was on Canadian Idol as a teenager, so I made it pretty far in Canadian Idol. And was, they gave me lots of featured time on the show. And so I was also the pride of Peterborough, and they would have like glowing neon signs, congrats Taylor, and all this stuff. And then I would go to school, and, people were generally fine at school, but I also, I probably, I wrote a MySpace post about how uncomfortable I was feeling at school at the time. This kind of other school I went to in the mornings, and other kids got wave of that and just kind of made it worse. And there started to be like a Facebook group, where there'd be death threats against me and horrifying stuff like that. So,
oh my God,
yeah,
that's insane. Welcome to the new world. That's insane.
Well, and this was just at the beginning of it. So this was like 2008.
Right. Right. So cyberbullying was starting, but there wasn't as much protection, and there certainly wasn't people being called out for doing it the way there is now.
Exactly. And
if somebody did that now, they'd probably be arrested or at least seriously reprimanded. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I assumed that it was kind of I couldn't take it too seriously, and I was going to be out of that school soon. And but it, of course, was something going on in the back of my mind. And there were also like Canadian Idol chat forums that were like calling me a tranny and jumping to all these vast conclusions. And I was 15, 16. And I already,
if you were a cross-dresser, if you're actually a woman pretending you're a guy with a high voice, you could be even more famous. So you would admit that if that was true. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Like for me, in terms of gender identity stuff, it's like, you've seen me in drag. I don't mind doing it. I did Thriller one time at the Lula Lounge in
right. I did. I forgot that one time. Right.
Yeah. But it's something that I'm kind of figuring out. I think that I'm kind of like the way that Eddie Izzard is, where he does stand-up sets in like a kimono and maybe with his nails painted. It's like I'm not in a extreme situation, but who knows? Maybe that'll change. I don't know. All I know is for now, I like, for me, it always feels like I'm if it's in like response to like hating my masculinity, then it's never empowering. But if it's like I can choose to do this other thing, then it's enjoyable.
Right.
Because really, in the lyrics of "If I Was a Woman," the kind of gender dysphoria song, which was something that I wrote in 5 minutes and didn't really think much of, and just kind of again snuck it on that playlist for Eddie. That was a song where the lyrics talk about. For me, a lot of it was almost this confused response to feeling really trapped in the expectations of being a man in small town Ontario, where it's like, oh, let's get on the skidoo and not talk about our feelings, all that basic stuff. But I really started to realize how I'd made this up, that like men, or that women were better than men just because of how rigid it all was. And you know, you start to see that that's not exactly the case, and you know, gender is not a specific thing, and there's a lot of different ways and places
Well, like I
I can
say,
go.
you are in the perfect time of life here now to be bringing this up without the kind of microscopic, small-minded views that were held as norms up until 20 years ago, even. So,
Yeah,
and probably a lot of your heroes are people like David Bowie and people that could play
yeah.
with that anyway, right?
Well, I mean, the album that got me thinking, oh my God, I have to be a songwriter, was hearing Goodbye Yellow Brick Road
Right.
for the first time.
Yeah.
And so all of my heroes were gay guys, and so my mom had to sit down with me at the peak of the metrosexual movement, because you know I was an actor and I liked IKEA, so that must mean that there's something about him. So, and she's like, we love you either way, whatever you are,
Yeah.
you know. So
Well, that's actually really good. Now,
yeah, it's
tell
really
me
sweet.
about some cartoon work. You have done so many voices. I don't watch a lot of cartoons, and I certainly don't have any kids. So, a lot of the stuff you've done, I had to look up to see. But what
Right.
would be your favorite role, or something that people would recognize?
Well, I'm something that people might recognize is like stuff like Beyblade, because anime is huge. But the irony is that anime is like such a strange form of voice acting, because you kind of go in and there's a 3 2 1 count in, and it's like doing karaoke literally, and you've just got to try and hit the mouth flaps correctly because it's already animated, and there's all
Right.
these redundant words because of the translation. It's, I do not like you, you are the bad guy, I will defeat you, you know, just stuff that you don't need to say.
Exactly.
And so, but you know, people love it, and I love a lot of it too. So I did a bunch of the Beyblade shows, but I think my favorite gig so far has been, there was a show I did called Fangbone, where I got
Right.
to write the theme song for it as well,
Yeah.
and that was
But was
just a
that
really
Disney?
special. Yeah, it aired on a Disney network, and
Yeah.
it was what was neat is that it was largely made in Canada, and it was a big investment for Canada to try and make this boys adventure show. You know, typically we'll make preschool shows,
Hmm.
we'll do those fully here, or we'll do those as co-productions with other countries. But to try and make an action adventure show on our own was or largely on our own was very daring. So I just love that character, because he's a barbarian child from a planet named Skullbania. And so he was an oddball who didn't quite fit in, but found people he belonged with, and you know, that sums me up in a heartbeat. So
That's right. Now back to your record. So the record is out. Obviously, you can't do a whole bunch right now. There aren't any gigs or anything. I guess you could make a video or something. But what are your plans for 2021? Do you have any aspirations? I mean, you can't make solid plans, but what are your hopes for that?
well, my hopes are to do another album, and I've actually gotten a grant for not enough to flesh it out fully, but something to start,
Yeah.
to make another record. I've also, yeah, I've got music videos coming. I've got lots of content coming. I've been trying to flip my brain into promo mode, and hopefully to hire people for the next time around,
Right.
because
Well,
it's rough on my
you
own.
never ever run out of ideas. I've known you, I guess, about 6, 7 years now. You've never stopped putting out new songs and coming up with new concepts. So good luck with that. And Factor and Ontario Arts Council, did they help you with that first record, or is that with the next record?
Well, yeah, Factor and TAC helped me with Toronto.
Oh, I don't know what happened.
Oh,
You
hello.
are now muted.
Oh,
Oh, there. No, you're back.
I'm back. Okay,
Yes.
good.
You
Yeah,
were
sorry,
muted for a few seconds.
someone tried to call me. So yeah, it was Factor and Toronto Arts Council helped me
Yeah.
make the record, and for this next one, I've got a little bit from the Ontario Arts Council, and hopefully more from the others. We will
Yeah,
find.
I think it's wonderful that there are bodies like that helping somebody get their leg up. In a country like Canada, the only other country like this is Australia. They're the only ones who can feel our pain. For you to tour your record, you have to drive 14 hours to go from a city of 40,000 to a city of 30,000. Like it's not like America or Europe where you can dart around and play a million places. So I know it's
Exactly.
really difficult.
And you know, I genuinely wonder what's going to happen once COVID has truly subsided. What's going to happen to touring? I think that at least in Canada, it's still going to be something that's resisted more and more. And
Yeah,
I think that there might be a hybrid of these live concerts and other things.
yeah.
But it is, you know, one thing that I do on my album is I have this credits track, and I kind of protest streaming and just the lack of payouts, and it's become so abundantly clear to me how important things like
Well,
Factor are
absolutely.
during
We're
all
both
this.
in that boat, right? We
Yeah,
both have seen the Spotify statements. After having hundreds of thousands of hits, you get tens of dollars.
yeah.
Doesn't make sense. Um,
And then the amount of effort you have to put in to get those hundreds of thousands of streams, you know,
right.
most of the time, you know, you do have to hire someone or something to help you out a little bit, and that just defeats the purpose anyway.
That's right.
So
Well, listen, I think you made a great record. I can't wait for people to go to your website, find out more about you, and I look forward to working with you someday on this uh, simpler, get some of those songs out. Nowadays, you can release 5 songs, 10 songs, 20 songs. It's all up to you and all up to the concept.
exactly, we could just make a jazz EP
Yeah,
together,
absolutely.
or singles, or maybe I'll put out my album in reverse next. I'll just
Yep.
the whole album in reverse, and you have to flip it around in your stereo system, and
Oh, now I see you as
that's
Taylor
that.
A. Do you go by Taylor A or do you go by your full name?
I go by my full name, at least this time around. So yeah, Taylor Abrahamse.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to see you live in person.
Thank you, James, and I've really enjoyed seeing your live stream concerts as well on Facebook. That's been a delight. I can't wait to see you again. My favorite musical experiences in the city have been going to things that Jaymz B organizes, and just I miss you. I'm
I love watching people see you for the first time. Their eyes get watery. They got goosebumps. They're freaking out. They're like, "Who is this kid? And why is this music affecting me so much?"
well, thank you.
Great to see you, man.
Great to see you too, James. All
Cheers.
right,
Bye.
bye for now.